Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Caroline Woods. Today, we're going to talk about Generation X and their path forward to retirement. Joining us for the conversation is Caroline Feeney, Prudential Financial's CEO of U.S. Businesses. Caroline, welcome. So glad to have you here.
Thank you so much, Caroline. I'm delighted to be here and very much admire the work that you do here. It's very important. So thank you for having me.
Well, same to you. And just kind of diving right in, we know retirement is top of mind for so many people, but while people might be thinking about it, they may not have enough money to actually do it. The current retirement savings gap in America is $30 trillion. Can you speak to us really to kick things off about this savings gap and why it matters to Gen X specifically?
Absolutely, Caroline. So first of all, when it comes to the $30 trillion retirement savings gap that you mentioned, obviously a serious issue. And I'll give you a few reasons that help explain the situation Americans are in and when it comes to retirement. So first of all, Caroline, I'd say approximately 15% of private sector workers have access to a defined benefit plan. Now that's in comparison to over 80% back in 1980, clearly a major difference. And second, about half of American households have no savings in retirement accounts, which is an obvious concern. And third, I'd say that the average Social Security benefit is estimated to be about 40% of average monthly retirement expenses, which clearly presents a problem for those looking to maintain their standard of living in retirement. So, and there are a few underlying causes, and including lack of access to the tools, the education, and financial solutions that can really help improve an individual's retirement readiness. So Prudential is very much interested in helping to close this gap. It fits squarely with our vision as a company, which is to expand access to investing, insurance, and retirement security. So we've focused on a body of research that we call Pulse, that really, Caroline, provides insights on the financial solutions as well as the behaviors of different generations, and then helps us be informed as to how to best engage with our own customers and our clients. And this most recent survey that we did through Pulse takes a closer look at Gen X, which I happen to be a member of, which in many ways is often overlooked and is sometimes called the forgotten generation. And specifically in this survey, we explored how Gen X is navigating retirement readiness and in what is in many ways one of the most complex landscapes that we've seen in decades. And the findings really do affirm that we need to reimagine retirement strategies today for a better tomorrow and a better future.
And we'll talk about what reimagining retirement strategies actually looks like. But just from the Pulse survey data, give us an overall sense of how prepared Gen X is for retirement right now. What does the data actually show?
Yes. So first of all, the survey revealed that this generation is feeling rather uneasy about their current retirement strategy. For example, Caroline, nearly half believe they will not have enough saved to live comfortably in retirement, and more than a third report having less than $10,000 saved for retirement. However, I think understanding the context is critical. It's just a challenging time for Gen X, and they're doing their best to manage their careers and saving for retirement, all while caring for aging parents and children simultaneously. And as we move through life, we have this moment where we think one day we'll become empty nesters, and then we'll have the opportunity to focus on what we want to do in retirement. And then suddenly, out of the blue, we're caring for someone in ways that perhaps we didn't expect, let alone fully plan for. And this has particularly hit this generation squarely. In fact, 51% of Gen Xers are currently caregiving or financially supporting a family member or another dependent. And I will share, in fact, my husband and I just became empty nesters ourselves with two children now in college. And I find myself now as the sole financial provider for my mother-in-law. because she simply did not have enough resources, because she didn't do enough planning, and frankly, providing for her care was simply never something we put into our own financial plan. And it's absolutely no surprise that this experience is similar across various generations. However, our survey found that Gen Xers aren't necessarily taking this all too common scenario into consideration. And the findings are frankly surprising, because only 12% of this generation are factoring in ongoing financial support for children in their retirement savings, and just 4% are factoring in ongoing financial support for their parents. And then on top of that, obviously you have economic uncertainty, inflation, and the risk of potential depletion of Social Security down the road, and it all makes it much harder for this group, and obviously other generations as well, to make sure they're planning and saving for the future.
So this isn't about awareness necessarily. When you speak to clients at Prudential, it's not that they don't know that they don't have enough money. It's that they just don't have enough money to save for retirement.
Yes, I think that's absolutely it. It's not that they're not worried. It's not that they're not concerned. I think it's resources and where to start, and knowing what the next steps are very often.
Well, speaking of resources, I saw a data point that more than 20% of Gen Xers actually seek financial advice from YouTube. And I've learned how to do plenty of things on YouTube. It's certainly useful. But is it that they're misinformed, or they need to seek additional resources outside of places like social media?
Yeah, so it's a terrific question, Caroline. And I think what we find is, with this generation and others for that matter, yeah, they will go to YouTube and they'll find themselves on social media, researching a question or looking at something that's of interest. So it's a source of information and it's a source of education. But too often, Caroline, it stops there. And so there's no follow-up or next steps, or researching digital tools or resources that can help them take the next step, and perhaps in start an investment plan, or seek the help of an expert.
So Gen Xers should technically be retiring somewhat soon, call it 10 to 20 years. Yeah. Is there enough time to turn the ship around if they are behind?
Yeah, it's again a terrific question. So first of all, the latest average retirement age to receive Social Security in full is 67. And while you can receive a partial benefit as early as 62, it certainly does have its drawbacks. And chief among them is that it would be about 30% lower, the payout, than it would be at your full retirement age. So for Gen X, with its oldest members born in 1965 and its youngest members born in 1980, they still have a good number of years left, anywhere between 9 years and 24 years left on the work side, to be exact, and to really focus on their retirement. And if they haven't put a plan in place yet, it's clearly time to get serious about planning, because every single year will make a difference. For instance, if you're behind on saving for retirement, you can envision the retirement you want for yourself, and then start living as though you're already living off your retirement money. And do this while you're still working, so you can save the balance. But the bottom line is that it's absolutely not too late to start planning. And if you haven't started, now is certainly the time to really think about the first steps you can take.
Okay, so let's talk about some of those steps. You talked about reimagining retirement. So first, talk to us about what that actually means in practice.
Yeah, absolutely. Caroline, I'd say that it means first recognizing the limitations of a one-size-fits-all approach, and instead starting off by asking yourself, what do I want my retirement to look like? It's a very personal thing. It should be. People have different dreams. They have different hobbies and ways in which they want to spend their time during retirement. And that ultimately is going to inform how much retirement savings one needs, right? So if you imagine for a moment an individual who has no desire to stay in their home and wants to travel considerably, that's a very different set of expenses compared to someone who perhaps wants to remain where they are and volunteer and take on a small part-time job during their retirement. And in fact, 40% of Gen Xers reported that they plan to work part-time in retirement. And working part-time in retirement doesn't need to be based on a need for income. It could just as well be a way to stay active and engaged and continue to socialize. So in terms of unique ways to spend retirement, I actually read an article about a couple who booked back-to-back cruises spanning several years because it was less expensive for them than buying a retirement home. So they saved on travel, and it was the carefree lifestyle they were looking for in retirement. So that worked for them. And also makes for a great story to share with friends. So when I think about Prudential's purpose, it's very much, Caroline, about making lives better by solving the financial challenges of our changing world and helping people get ready for the retirement they envision for themselves, however that looks. And that could be very much against a backdrop of economic uncertainty. And that's what we're really about. And core to that solution is taking a holistic, a comprehensive approach. Because as I said earlier, most of this generation, they don't have some of the same access to, let's say, a traditional pension. And to rely on Social Security alone is just not a sound strategy. And so I'd also say that obviously our discussion, Caroline, that we're having is focused primarily on Gen Xers, but much of what we're talking about here in terms of reimagining retirement and making it personal and taking certain steps can obviously apply to other generations as well. And I think planning today really requires an attitude shift from a set it and forget it to having the flexibility to account for different circumstances and changing lifestyle preferences.
Well, certainly a lot to break down there. I can tell you, I'm not a cruise person, but taking back-to-back cruises certainly seems a lot more appealing to me than working even part-time during retirement, because I thought the whole point was to not work once you retire. But you talk about this holistic approach. I'm curious about what that actually looks like. You know, I'm a kind of a to-do list kind of person. So if you can break it down into action points of what a holistic approach to retirement planning looks like.
Yes, of course. It's a really, by the way, I'm with you on the cruise piece as well, but it's a really important question. So a holistic approach to retirement means really thinking much more broadly around how you're envisioning your retirement. So it includes education and risk mitigation and adding financial solutions that can create an income stream. And so the risk mitigation could take the form of a life insurance policy. Solutions that add an income stream could be an annuity that provides a lifetime income. And finally, there's the important advice that can come from a trusted advisor. You know, and to that point, and you mentioned this earlier, Caroline, when you spoke about the YouTube research, we know from our own research that unfortunately, too many people choose not to seek financial advice from a professional because they believe it's going to be cost prohibitive. But the truth is there's plenty of advisors that really do look at your entire situation, and it's not costly and it's readily accessible. Because today in Prudential, as an example, while we certainly do have financial planners who generally charge an upfront planning fee, we also have financial advisors and financial professionals who don't charge an upfront fee, and those who will meet with you in a variety of ways, including face-to-face or virtual or through a mix of both. And there are many different options today when it comes to receiving advice from a professional. And I think at the end of the day, the most important thing to think about here is these are serious decisions that can impact your retirement and have a meaningful impact on your future. And what we do find is that people feel more comfortable, even after they educate themselves online, speaking to an expert to make sure they're ultimately making the right choices. And through our research, there's a big opportunity here because we found that over half of Gen Xers aren't currently using an advisor and even don't have plans to use one in the future, or are unsure about using one, as you mentioned earlier. And for those who are unsure, I will share that my entire career has been in this space, so I feel like I know it pretty well. But unless you're specifically offering financial advice for a living, which means staying current on rules and regulations and investment vehicles, it's difficult to manage and navigate. So I use a professional financial planner, and I have for many years now.
Mm-hmm. And if the gap continues to widen, or if the 35% of people that only have $10,000 saved, if that $10,000 doesn't grow, then what? Will people be working longer? Will they sell assets? What's the takeaway?
Yeah, so it's not. I wish I had one magical answer that would solve for that. It's not a pretty picture. I think people are going to have to make tough choices, whether that is not actually living the retirement that they would have dreamed for themselves, or selling assets prematurely that they otherwise would not have wanted to tap into. And so that's why I think our effort within Prudential, and obviously you're bringing this to the forefront in the discussion, is what are the major things that people can be doing now, with the fact that particularly with Gen Xers, they do still have time to start planning and make that a priority.
It's not just retirement planning that they have to think about, though, also emergency savings. I saw almost 50% of respondents in the Pulse survey don't have an emergency savings. So how should they prioritize that with retirement?
Yes. So I think first and foremost, and it's a terrific point, and I'm glad you called out that data point. First and foremost, I think it is imperative that people actually put aside the money and work to save the money for an emergency fund, because that obviously can completely wreak havoc with the plans that people believe they want to put in place for retirement. It can really set individuals back, not just months, but it can set people back, years, if they suffer an unforeseen emergency that they're just not prepared for. So you always try to encourage individuals first to put aside that emergency fund and then build from there.
Okay. All right. We only have a couple minutes left, so I want to give you a chance to really drive home any key points that you've already talked about or that we haven't brought up, just in terms of, you said, 9 to 24 years for Gen Xers, but anyone potentially nearing retirement or approaching a life milestone. What are the top takeaways for them to really walk away with from today's session?
Yeah, so I'd say, first of all, Carolina, I'd say imagine what you want your retirement to look like. It really starts there. And then you can begin to create a retirement strategy that goes beyond basic savings. And then second, I'd map out your holistic approach. So as part of your overall planning, focus on having a combination of strategies, such as maximizing your defined contribution plan, other investment vehicles, and protection strategies that can generate and protect a sustainable lifetime income. And third and finally, I'd say there's no time to act like the present. So start making contributions or to the 401k, or if you're already contributing, see if you can increase your contributions to a 401k if you have that available to you at work, and also consider working with a financial advisor. And finally, one last thought, Caroline. Remember that while the best time to have started to plan for retirement probably was 20 years ago, the next best time is to start now, because every day does count and every day can make a difference.
I think that's a great place to end it. A lot of key important points, Caroline. We really appreciate you joining us today and sharing your insights. Thanks to you, thanks to Prudential, and thanks to everyone watching.